Roll G. Stand tall, can't break me. No, don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Bad black queen, whole world gon' see. Yeah, don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Diamonds on my wrist, mine sharper than a key. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Step in the room, all eyes on she. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me.
Look, I'm the headline, you a footnote, baby. I write the rules, you just quote them maybe. They throw dirt, but I bloom like daisies. Pressure make a queen, can't faze me. Walk in, shut it down. Bossy with a grin, I ain't waiting on respect. That respect built in. When they see me, they salute. Cause the crown legit. And if you try to block the shine, you dismiss, bitch.
Raw G, stand tall, can't break me. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Bad black queen, whole world gon' see. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me.
Yeah, I'm a storm in Chanel, hurricane and some hills. Turn struggle into billions, manifest what's real. You pressing for a crown, sit back, chill. I was born in the throne and I've been no will. They whisper my name cause they know it here. Heavy talk slick on the net, but in person not ready. I'm the fire and the flood, can't box me in steady. Raw G, no cage, yeah my aim too deadly.
Raw G, don't play with me, don't play. Queens run the board, checkmate, you see. Talk loud, but your moves too weak, too cheap. I'm the nightmare you fear when you go to sleep. Raw G, stand tall, can't break me. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Bad black queen, whole world gon' see. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Diamonds on my wrist, mine sharper than a key. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me. Step in the room, all eyes on she. Don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me.
My bad. I had to turn my mic on. Hello. Welcome to everybody. I got some shit to get off of my chest, and I'm gonna talk about it because apparently a lot of people be on social media and they're talking and they literally are just talking to talk. They're just talking to talk. They literally have no clue what the hell they be out here talking about or fighting for. It is November 2nd, one day after no food stamps. November began, and people have no idea, in fact, why the government is shut down. Hey, brother of a certain age, good morning. So we're going to go over some things, and then we're going to talk, and we're going to discuss. And we're going to discuss what Donald Trump, because a lot of people are giving him pushback and talking really crazy about the President of the United States of America, literally committing treason every time we turn around. Whether you like his politics or not, he's still your fucking president. Like, you guys are out here saying the most ridiculous stuff, and we're literally about to go to war. People are out here trying to shame families that don't have the ability to feed their families, while simultaneously telling women that they shouldn't have deletions. Make it make sense. You want to force women to have kids, and then you want to say, well, who cares about feeding those kids? You want to tell women not to have sex if they're poor, but then you want to sleep with these women. It's the complete juxtaposition for me. It's the complete lack of any type of succinct rationale or thinking for me. And quite frankly, I'm sick of it. So I just heard somebody saying some bull crap about what the shutdown was about. So let's get into it. Now, this is from CNN Politics from October 9th, 2025. Obamacare premiums could more than double. Here's why it matters in the shutdown battle. Obamacare has brought the federal government to a standstill. Once again, Republicans and Democrats are locked in a battle over landmark healthcare reform laws. But this time it has prevented lawmakers from passing legislation to fund federal agencies for the current fiscal year, forcing the government to shut down on October 1st. At the center of the conflict are the Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. Literally, this is what the shutdown is about. The Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. When Democrats took full control of Congress in 2021, they beefed up the Obamacare's existing premium subsidies as a part of former President Joe Biden's sweeping C-19 relief package and then renewed the enhancements the following year. The measure enables many low-income Americans to obtain coverage with no or very low monthly premiums and broadens eligibility for assistance to many middle-class consumers. The enhanced subsidies help propel Obamacare to record enrollment levels. More than 24 million people signed up for 2025 coverage, double the number who selected plans for 2021 before the subsidies kicked in. Roughly 92% of enrollees receive subsidies. So these are the subsidies and the reforms that they're talking about and they're disagreeing about in Congress that is shutting us down, okay? So the number of Americans who selected ACA plans during open enrollment since marketplaces opened, okay, is 24.32 million. When it opened, it was 12. Get it? So why is Congress fighting about the enhanced subsidies now? The beefed up subsidies are set to expire at the end of this year. Democratic lawmakers want to lock in an extension as part of a must-pass government funding package, which they see as their best chance to get the Republican majority in Congress to agree to renew the measure. The Democrats also want to reverse the sweeping health care cuts enacted in the GOP's One Big Beautiful Bill Act this summer. So they are trying to stop the cuts, but what was really being cut in the Big Beautiful Bill were the enhancements. Get into it. In addition, Democrats and Obamacare advocates stress that time is of the essence. Open enrollment began yesterday in all states but Idaho, where it started on October 15th. Consumers are now able to start viewing the 2026 premiums this month, and many could be deterred from signing up by the much bigger price tags. Republicans, on the other hand, are pushing a so-called clean continuing resolution that would fund federal government through November 21st. The House approved the legislation last month, but it's being held up in the Senate, where at least 7 Democrats need to support the bill for it to pass. So anybody trying to make this about Republicans or about the Trump or about the president, Donald Trump, you need to really fully understand that it is the Democratic Party that wants to keep these premiums and these subsidies going, which increases our overall debt. GOP leaders and President Donald Trump say they are willing to discuss extending the subsidies, but only after the government reopens. Even then, however, they'll have to convince some Republican lawmakers who have long sought to dismantle Obamacare to come to the law's aid. Republicans have also expressed concern that the enhanced subsidies led to an outbreak of enrollment fraud. Not enrollment fraud, but everybody's talking about welfare fraud. Everybody's talking about EBT. Why? So people trying to make this about anything else than what it is crazy. But let's take a look at Power Lunch from CNBC and see what the hell they're talking about. My God, today.
Road to any kind of a deal, because a deal has to at some point be made. Joining us now is Raymond James Washington policy analyst Ed Mills. Ed, there's a lot of complex stuff we can get to, but I want to start off with a very simple question that I don't know the answer to. Can they just come together for like a small bill and pass something so that food stamp benefits don't run out? I mean, millions of kids not being able to have food or afford food and families, that's awful. And it's a stupid look for both parties. Are they just legislatively able to come and do something like that and work on the other stuff later?
From a technical perspective, absolutely, Brian. From a political perspective, absolutely not. Democrats actually proposed that in the Senate. Republicans blocked that because they said if Democrats really wanted this, there's a different vote that they could take, which is to support the continuing resolution, reopening the government. Republicans would argue that if you do that, that is going to only delay the opening of the government overall. And so to me,
What did this analyst say? This political analyst just told you again. The Republicans were willing to reopen the government to make sure that Americans could eat, but the Democrats said, heck no, we want those subsidies. We're not budging an inch. We're not going to open the government until we get those subsidies. But y'all are focused on food stamps because y'all are focused on the tree and not the forest. But let's continue.
Kind of the fact that there is going to be these missed payments, it starts the beginning of
Both parties go on TV, thank God, political channel, but they go on TV and they point fingers at each other and say, this one did this one did this. I can't, to be honest with you, Ed, I can't really follow it. Sounds like.
Shout out to Nisi for subscribing. I appreciate you. So when we get into the impact of the government shutdown as it stands today, SNAP benefits, missed paychecks, because nobody is talking about all of the Americans that work for the federal government that are not getting their paychecks and do not have an ability to go get SNAP benefits to assist during this furlough. Air traffic delays are some of the first real pressure on Congress. We ain't going to talk about all the people that are now stuck in airports or that have sick family members or family members in general, or just trying to travel because they're not on public assistance and they're actually just trying to live their life, and they can't do that either because of the air traffic delays. My God, today, the path ahead likely involves a new short-term CR to reopen the government. So now y'all are out here screaming your heads off in the middle of the night, in the midnight hour, saying that people don't deserve SNAP benefits. Cool. But do people deserve paychecks when they go to work every day and they can't get paid? And do remember that federal employees do not have the option to say, well, I'm not going to work. Because if they don't go to work right now during this furlough, then guess what? They also lose their contract with the government and they will not get paid again, and they'll have a harder time finding employment in the future. Air traffic control and aviation being severely impacted by the federal government shutdown. Nope, that's not a topic of conversation at all. You guys are literally talking about all the things that don't matter and all the things that are not actually holding up the government from opening up. This literally rests on the laurels of Obamacare subsidies. But all it takes is a quick Google search, but nobody does that. Everybody has these expensive phones. Everybody gets on podcasts and talks ad nauseum, ad addendum about nothing. Anyway, let's continue.
Republicans could just come up and say, we want to, provide food stamp benefits to 42 million people. It seems like a good thing. Why is this not happening? I don't get it.
Yeah, because it would prolong the shutdown. I mean, there was a separate kind of attempt to make sure that there was a vote just on military pay, and that didn't go anywhere either, Brian. So right now, I think.
Do you understand that wanting to push these subsidies is also making members of our armed forces not get a paycheck? Shout out to all of the men and women of the armed forces that are still protecting and serving Americans and not getting a paycheck because Congress is playing games to push some subsidies and to continue subsidies. These men and women are on the front line. These men and women are getting ready to go into war. These men and women are away from their families every single day. They're living in sand. They're living in a whole bunch of stuff. They're forced to deal with unimaginable atrocities of humanity every single day, and they can't get paid. But that is not what is pushed on your news broadcast every day. That's not what's pushed to you on social media. What's being pushed to you on social media is about some damn food stamps. Be so for real. Let's continue.
I think what we're going to see is the pressure build because we have these missed paychecks, people's rent, mortgages, because we are going to see TSA delays. I was delayed back and forth to the West Coast this week. That's going to build, and you need that pressure. Ultimately, I think probably what we could see is an agreement to negotiate on the Affordable Care Act subsidies once the government is reopened. And so I could see a reopening of the government in the next couple of weeks, an opportunity to negotiate. And it's kind of almost semantics at this point, Brian, because Republicans say they will negotiate, but we first have to open the government. And Democrats are saying, well, we're not going to negotiate until you open the government. But the pressure building, reopen the government, short-term CR, clear the decks on everyone getting paid, people getting their benefits. And then Democrats would have an opportunity, if they don't like the deal, to shut the government down again at the end of the CR if they haven't gotten the solve to the problem on the Affordable Care Act.
Listen, most people in Congress either came in rich or have become rich somehow. I don't know. They go into Congress and make a couple of grand a year, and they end up being worth $20 million. Figure that one out, Ed, if you can. I don't understand. It's the best path to wealth, I think, in America. But that aside, they're not the ones that are going to be hurt. 42 million families losing food stamp benefits, losing SNAP benefits. There's nothing more important than that. I'm hoping to fly home now, basically, go back east I'm in San Francisco right now. When their flights stop going too, you're going to see a lot of outrage in corporate America. How much leverage do you think corporate America might have to say, listen, guys, my teams can't travel, which means business is going to start to shut down, which means tax revenues could also get hurt?
Oh, no, you mean the forest, the bigger picture, the biggest picture? Right, they do make insurance affordable. However, should we ever have been forced to get insurance in the first place? Because Obamacare, or the Affordable Cares Act, actually forced so many Americans to get an insurance plan that they actually didn't need, right? And the premiums actually went up due to the Affordable Care Act. You guys could go check out Cellulite Podcast. He did an amazing show, or he will be doing one, showing how the Affordable Care Act actually increased what families spent on health insurance premiums. And if you don't have health insurance, then you get a penalty on your taxes. So taxes that you have paid in all year long, you have less of an opportunity to get a tax refund if you have not maintained health coverage. So there's that. But I just wanted to share that little piece with you. I'm also going to share, because I did see someone in the chat say, what war, and they didn't sign up for that. You may not have signed up for it. However, President Trump has ordered the Department of War to begin preparing for military action in Nigeria against the radical Islamic jihadists that have been slaughtering the Christian population. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the deletion of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. And because I am a journalist, I'm going to tell you this is sourced in multiple places, and I'll show you another one. This is from Truth Justice Socials, Donald Trump's website. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the deleting of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go in that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. I am hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attacked our cherished Christians. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast. Do you think they're going to move fast? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But what's interesting is about 16 hours, Fox News wanted to give us a nice reminder of Barack Obama's comments during a prior shutdown during his presidency. Let's listen in.
This thing is getting obviously worrisome, but You let this thing go on for another couple of weeks and you get into Thanksgiving travel, and this thing is going to turn into a nightmare.
No, absolutely. And with the SNAP benefits, too. I mean, you have poor Americans who might get cut off from some of the food that they need to feed their children ahead of the holidays. It's going to affect their ability to enjoy the holidays. So this is a big deal. You know, it used to be that Democrats cared about issues like this. I remember back when Obama said this during the government shutdown in 2013. Watch.
Think about this. Shutting down the government just because you don't like a law that was passed and found constitutional. No Congress before this one has ever in history been irresponsible enough to threaten default, to threaten an economic shutdown, to suggest America not pay its bills, just to try to blackmail a president into giving them some concessions. We're not going to submit to this kind of total irresponsibility. Congress needs to pay our bills on time. Congress needs to pass a budget on time. Congress needs to put an end to governing from crisis to crisis. If Republicans do not like the law, they can go through the regular channels and processes to try to change it. That's why we have elections. You do not threaten the full faith and credit of the United States of America.
So when President Obama wanted to blame the Republicans, it was irresponsible, and no president should fall under siege of blackmail from a political party, and political parties should utilize the full force of the government and the modalities included there within to change laws, which is what President Trump did when he wrote the executive order for the big bad bill, and it was voted into law. This was just passed. It was just voted into law. And now the Democrats are like, well, he got some of us to vote for it for that. But now we're going to not pay the bills of the country. We're going to say F the American people right before midterms. And then we're just going to let everybody starve. And we're going to do what we want to do just because this is what we want. But let's continue.
But yet now,
love a good flashback like that.
Key word there was blackmail, blackmailing. And it's important to remember, too, that Chuck Schumer, who once called government shutdowns the politics of idiocy, famously said of this shutdown that every day gets better for us. Well, every day is not getting better for everyone. The flight delays, 42 million Americans with SNAP benefits. And just one last point on that. Hakeem Jeffries. So Washington is run by the big four leaders, right? The majority leader and the Speaker of the House, and the minority leader, and the minority leader in the House as well. And yet Hakeem Jeffries, out of every House district in the country, Hakeem Jeffries is the 6th most impacted by SNAP benefits. 43% of his district is enrolled in SNAP. So you would think that Schumer, who led us...
I can tell you what. The families that are facing food insecurities right now in Hakeem Jeffries' district are more likely than not going to vote for him in the midterms. And as you saw from our first clip, most of these congressional members and Senate members, they come to Washington, D.C. already rich, and they are still getting paid through this government shutdown while Americans are suffering. And again, as I stated before, everybody was super excited for food stamps to be shutting down, but they forgot about the rest of the economic devastation to the country. Now we're starting to look at the non-welfare recipients of the nation, the travelers, the businessmen, the companies that are going to be impacted by this government shutdown and are in fact right now being impacted. Not using context over emotion. They won't like that. I know they won't, good brother. I know they won't. Thank you for the gift. But let's continue.
Into this shutdown, and Hakeem Jeffries, who is among the most impacted, would come to the table and say this needs to end.
And I think, you know, obviously both sides are trying to blame one another, but the facts remain. Bipartisan majorities in both the House and the Senate voted to keep the government open at Biden spending levels. a minority of Democrats in the Senate are filibustering it. That's why it is 100% Democrats who are responsible for shutting the government down.
What a great statistic you just put forward, because if 43% of his constituents are on SNAP, what will happen when SNAP runs out? How much pressure will even Hakeem Jeffries, who's been, by the way, being trolled by the president with sombrero hats for the last several weeks, now he's actually maybe getting trolled by his own constituents, may not be able to come home for the holidays because they're not going to get their SNAP benefits before Thanksgiving unless he relents.
The answer to that, Rachel, is he's either just being pressured by the far left progressives that want Democrats to just fight back and cause these problems, which are self-sabotaging, or he's in denial.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews.
So, that being said, like, what? Y'all are okay with the silliness as long as it benefits you. Y'all are okay with punching down on people because most people don't actually look at a total story. They just look at the part that makes them feel good and the part that makes them feel better. But again, the total nation is affected by a government shutdown. But let's see what Donald Trump himself had to say. Trump pushes the nuclear option to end the government shutdown. Let's listen in.
This morning, President Trump is calling on Republicans to change the rules in the Senate to reopen the government. Trump posting overnight, it is now time for the Republicans to play their Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now. The move would allow Republicans to pass a bill to fund the government with a simple majority instead of the 60 votes currently needed. But Senate Majority Leader John Thune has warned against this move, saying it could come back to bite Republicans whenever Democrats take power back. Meanwhile, millions of Americans fear their food assistance or SNAP benefits will run out tomorrow as the government shutdown drags on.
I've gone to social media to ask for help from everyone that I could possibly think of.
It now appears a federal judge hearing a lawsuit over emergency funding may step in. Judge Indira Talwani saying right now Congress has put money in an emergency fund for an emergency, and it's hard for me to understand how this isn't an emergency. Republicans argue it's not that easy.
If they transfer funds from these other sources, it pulls it away immediately from school meals and infant formula.
The judge dismissing the administration's explanation, saying,
Now y'all want to take the United States Department of Agriculture Emergency Fund, which is also meant to feed children in school, which also funds WIC, which is also, like, y'all want to end, which we have hurricanes that are en route. Shout out to Jamaica, Florida, and Haiti. Those people will need emergency food stamps, even those that do not qualify for SNAP benefits. You want to say F them and their emergency to fund SNAP because y'all want to fight about continuing a subsidy for a program that has been detrimental and devastating to the American public. But yes, let's make the focus about food stamps. Y'all want to talk so much trash on President Donald Trump, yet he's like, you know what? Just push the nuclear option and get everything back open, because he's not looking at your emotions. He's not looking at how y'all feel about immigration. He's not looking at how y'all feel about food stamps. He is looking at what is best for these contiguous United States to keep on running. He is looking at the fact that our military brothers and sisters are not getting paid. He is looking at the fact that there are workers in Congress on the Hill right now while they are filibustering, cleaning the toilets, taking out the trash, making sure they have a decent place to argue about these subsidies, and they are not getting paid and they cannot feed their families. Rent is due today, but guess what? All of October, nobody had money, and almost everybody in America is living paycheck to paycheck, which means most people could not pay their rent today, especially those that work for government entities. And guess what that also does? It causes a backlog in the court system, because all of those people that could not pay their rent because they have not been getting paid are going to be facing eviction. It gets deep. paper. But y'all just keep on going ahead and talking about single mothers and the food stamp program. Yeah, that's the most important thing in the whole shebang. The 1.5% of the GDP. You got that right. Mm-hmm.
I want agency action, not lawyering. We're not going to make everyone drop dead. The judge could compel the administration to release the funds, but whether the Trump administration will comply remains to be seen. And even if it does, the emergency funding available would still fall short of the monthly SNAP payouts. Back on Capitol Hill, Democrats digging in, refusing to open the government until Republicans agreed to extend Obamacare subsidies to prevent health care insurance premiums from skyrocketing next year. A Utah woman we spoke to says even with the subsidies, her premium next year will rise from $495 to $753. And without the subsidies, it will more than quadruple to more than $2,100.
We can't afford to double what it costs for us to live just to have health insurance.
Republicans argue the Affordable Care Act, which set up Obamacare, was a bad law that drives up premiums and strains doctors. President Trump last night posting, quote, Obamacare is a disaster. Rates are going through the roof for really bad health care. Do something, Democrats. Stacey Cox says right now a flawed plan is better than no plan. Meanwhile, as more government workers go without paychecks, more of them are turning to food banks.
Honestly, this has been devastating.
Wayne Barber says he's been an air traffic controller for 23 years.
I'm still going to show up to work because that's what I swore an oath to do.
But many air traffic controllers no longer getting paid are calling out sick, causing staff shortages and delays at major airports. At Orlando's airport yesterday, a warning that at one point there would be no certified air traffic controllers to land planes, forcing a ground delay.
A shortage of air traffic controllers was already a big problem before the government shutdown. Now authorities warn if the shutdown drags on, especially through the Thanksgiving travel period, it'll be a disaster.
But, you know, food stamps. Because that's the biggest story. That's the biggest point, right? Right? Like, this is what y'all think? You can't be serious. Y'all are all enraged. Y'all are all in your emotions about everything except for what you should be enraged and in your feelings about. Now, just for shits and giggles, let's take a look at a letter from the desk of the United States Department of Agriculture. Impact of the government lapse on November Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program household benefits. The best way for SNAP to continue is for the shutdown to end. If not for congressional Democrats blocking government funding, November SNAP benefits would be paid on time. This is a fact. Due to the congressional Democrats' refusal to pass a clean continuing resolution, approximately 42 million individuals will not receive their SNAP benefits come November 1st. This jeopardizes all SNAP recipients in November, including those that have applied for benefits in the last half of October, and furloughed federal employees who will not receive their combined October and November benefits. Contingency funds are not legally available to cover regular benefits. Let me read that for y'all again. Contingency funds are not legally available to cover regular benefits. Democrats have refused to pass the CR and fund regular monthly benefits for fiscal year 2026. SNAP contingency funds are only available to supplement regular monthly benefits when amounts have been appropriated for, but are insufficient to cover benefits. The contingency fund is not available to support fiscal year 2026 regular benefits because the appropriation for regular benefits no longer exists. Catch. So any judge trying to push a law to make the USDA give emergency food stamps for something that doesn't exist has lost their mind. Instead, the contingency fund is a source of funds for contingencies, such as the Disaster SNAP program, which provides food purchasing benefits for all individuals in disaster areas, including natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods that can come on quickly and without notice. For example, Hurricane Melissa is currently swirling the Caribbean and could reach Florida. Having funds readily available to allow the USDA to mobilize quickly in the days and weeks following a disaster. No, actually, it's the Democrats. Like, we literally just went over videos and news. Not my opinion, not my emotion. The facts. The facts are the Democrats are holding the government hostage because they want to continue Affordable Care Act subsidies. Please keep up with the class, Dawn. Keep up with the class. Transfers from other sources would pull away funding for school meals and infant formula. Taking from the disaster fund or the contingency fund of the USDA would shut down child nutrition programs, which include the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, and Child and Adult Care Feeding Program. Transferred $23 billion from its annual Section 32 tariff funds to carry out to these programs during the lapse. $23 billion to make sure that children and adults that are in daycare can eat. These funds are also temporarily supporting the Special Supplemental Nutrition Assistant Program for Women, Infant, and Children, WIC. Additional transfers will be needed to support WIC and will be taken from the CN full year appropriation. This administration will not allow Democrats to jeopardize funding for school meals and infant formula in order to prolong their shutdown. This is from the Office of the Undersecretary for Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services. The USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. Despite their willingness, states cannot cover the cost of benefits and be reimbursed. Unlike other reimbursable programs, SNAP allotments are fully federally funded. States are responsible for determining household benefits and the movement of dollars through to the processors and ultimately to the retailers. There is no provision or allowance under current law for states to cover the cost of benefits and be reimbursed. Given the uncertainty on October 10th, the USDA notified states that they must hold on sending November benefit files to their EBT processors until further notice. A similar notice was provided in fiscal year 2016 when it was unclear if sufficient appropriations would be provided. Holding the issuance files prevents states and EBT processors from loading November benefits onto households' cards and protects existing balances. This provided the USDA additional time to work with states on how the program will operate until further decisions are made. And again, when faced with the obviousness of the truth, people like Dawn will call bullshit and say it's the Republicans. Tell me that you hate without a bit of knowledge within your head. I'll wait. See, one thing I cannot tolerate and one thing I will never abide is people just talking for the sake of talking. Republicans are out here trying to do something better for the American people. And Democratic senators and congressmen that have constituency in high regards as far as percentage-wise under their tutelage and leadership are allowing this to go on without giving a care for their constituents. But because so many people they just lack education, period, poo. They'll sit there and blame one party or the other. But it's more than that. This is about America. And it was President Trump that called for the Republicans to end the filibuster. Or did you miss that part too, Dawn? Should I play it again for you, Dawn, so you can be up to speed with the rest of the class? Let me play it for you again, Dawn, since you clearly missed it. But it's the Republicans. Sound crazy as hell.
When you're talking about SNAP, if you look, it's largely Democrats. They're hurting their own people.
There's absolutely no justification for Donald Trump and the Republicans to withhold SNAP.
The Democrats have voted 14 times now to prolong all this pain on the American people, and it's so frustrating to us.
I am absolutely going to encounter people that are depending on SNAP. I don't have an answer other than we failed.
So let's bring in our panel to talk about that and much more. Former Republican National Committee Communications Director Douglas High, Real Clear Politics White House correspondent Philip Wegman, and Olivia Beavers of the Wall Street Journal. Good to see all of you tonight. So let's pick.
Big Bear Venom, how the hell can it be Republican vote to open the government and only 3 Democrats, but the rest of Democrats vote not to open? Explain that. Exactly. There are currently laws that say there has to be like 60 votes to make it a vote, right? And there's another option, which is what we're watching now, what the president called, what the president called for the Republican Party to do. See, the Republicans have been playing the game fair. They've been playing it even. They don't have to because they have the numbers. And it's to the point now that they're like, oh, okay, these Democratic people are really trying to force travesty on the American public. And Donald Trump told them what to do. So let's listen.
Get up there because he had 2 federal judges today tell the White House you're going to have to figure out how to pay out the SNAP benefits. And then this from the president, in part on Truth Social, he says, our government lawyers do not think we have the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies we have available. And now 2 courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and cannot do. I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Therefore, I've instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. Douglas High, maybe tomorrow that November 1st deadline on SNAP doesn't hit the way that a lot of people feared it would.
On SNAP and a lot of things. And this is one of the rare examples where you see the Trump administration say, we don't have a lot of power or ability to do things here. And clearly he's trying to shift blame back on the Democrats. This is one place where Democrats have been aggressive on so many things. As you saw the John Fetterman statement, they've been on their heels there. And they know that they're losing this battle, maybe not politically in the states, but right now within the Capitol, they're losing that battle. Tomorrow becomes a big day, and how long that goes. If it's November 3rd or 4th, things should be fine. But if we get to Veterans Day and then certainly Thanksgiving, SNAP and Thanksgiving is going to be a terrible conversation for the country.
Yeah, it is. And also it will start to impact the travel stuff, the trouble we're really starting to see kick up. I landed at DCA yesterday and it was busy, to say the least. And if you get into the holiday traffic, it's going to be much worse.
Yeah, I think the pain is about to be felt.
Dawn, bitch, who the fuck are you talking to? Let me help you the fuck out and you can get the fuck out of the chat. How about stop being an ignorant cunt and actually know how your government operates? Y'all kill me with this, always talking about some people are drinking the Kool-Aid and all of this and all of that without even listening. Because again, you ignorants always want to be right. And you can't be right unless you actually have information, because knowledge is what? Power. I'm willing to bet a lot of money that you didn't even know that the government is actually being shut down based on subsidies for affordable care. The rest of the whole entire budget, they good on all of that. It's just pushing this Affordable Care Act, which actually caused a major increase in premiums from the onset. But see, you're so fucking ignorant, you stupid bitch, that you would not know that. The Affordable Care Act forced people in America to have insurance that couldn't actually afford it. And if they didn't afford to have it, they would be penalized for not having it. Also, I'm pretty sure you're not aware of how hard it is to find providers that actually take insurance that's not privatized and actually have a lot of issue with marketplace insurance and don't actually cover a lot of the benefits that privatized insurance covers. Do you, Dawn? But I do, because I deal with it on a daily. Have you ever had to go to the doctor and then they write you a prescription and you go to the pharmacy and the pharmacy tells you you need a prior authorization, but you're sick and you're in pain, and then you have to wait up to 3 business days, God forbid it happens on a Friday, and then you can't get your medicine because if the insurance company decides that the reason that your doctor put the prior authorization in for you to get that medication doesn't have enough of a medical benefit evidence by the doctor's reports and prognosis reports that they submit, they have to submit it again. So it really could take you upwards of a few weeks to get a medication that you need while you're sick and in pain. Huh? Have you ever gone to the doctor's office and needed to get a crown and your insurance company approved the root canal but not the crown? So now you're in pain, you can't eat food, and everything you put in your mouth is causing you to go into almost cardiac arrest from the level of pain, and you have to wait for the insurance company to battle back and forth with the dentist to approve your prior authorization so that you could have funding to pay for your crown. See, that's what happens with marketplace insurance. Have you ever needed to have a myocardiogram done on your heart and the insurance company approved the left side but not the right side because it was a clerical error, but to get in touch with a service coordinator that's going to be able to approve the left side, you have to go back and forth and wait 2 and 3 business days to try to get in touch with somebody to explain to them what you need, and then spend a week or more waiting for a prior authorization to be approved while your heart is failing. See, this is the actuality of the bullshit that y'all be talking about. Blaming it. Well, it's just the Republicans and it's just the Democrats. Y'all not actually looking at the American constituents. So yes, go away from my chat, bitch, and don't you ever come back. But let's continue.
Right around this time, I think that's why you were starting to see maybe some progress on Capitol Hill. Senators were starting to have a little bit of these meetings, and Senator Leader Thune said he thinks maybe next week after the elections, there's going to be some sort of inflection point where they can actually move forward. We'll see, because it has dragged on so long, but the pain is hurting, and maybe that's going to actually start pushing the pressure points that we can get out of this.
Yeah, and you wonder the blame game.
And they're playing a pressure point game during midterm elections. Like, what are we talking about right now? A lot of these people that are there, they don't care. Because come November 11th, some of them may not be voted back into the seats that they sit in right now. But again, if you're actually aware of civics and government in America, then you really know what's going on instead of watching news and talking points. I'm gonna be quiet though. Let's continue.
Whether that will pressure them as well. This latest poll out from Washington Post, ABC News shows that who's mainly responsible for the government shutdown. The largest group that you see there is President Trump and the congressional GOP at 45%, Democrats at 33%. But Philip, that's actually closed a little bit. Democrats are taking on a little bit of water here, but still way ahead of Republicans when it comes to who's responsible.
My sources at White House are dug in right now. They're not worried about that type of polling because I think that as we look at the shutdown, at the very beginning, the pain was localized, certainly unfortunate, but it fell on federal workers and on some of these military families. Now it's at risk of metastasizing. It's not just these families on SNAP. It's also these mothers on WIC, the air traffic controllers who are working without pay. And I think that on the first day of the shutdown, Vice President J.D. Vance, he said, look, we're willing to negotiate on Obamacare at a later date once you reopen the government. Now, this week, he's in the White House driveway with the Teamsters, with union members attacking Democrats on another front. This White House feels like as the pain metastasizes, they want it to end, but they feel like they have multiple angles of attack here on Democrats.
And I bet that some of that.
Now, what that was just speaking to is the American public is asleep. They're sheeple, for real. They're big. They're going off emotions. They're going off of perceived party lines. They just want to shift blame to the Republicans when the Republicans have been willing to open the government from the beginning. They never wanted it closed. The Democrats are fighting for the Affordable Care Act subsidies. That is why the government is shut down right now and continuing, because the Democrats want to fight for the Affordable Care Act subsidies. This is not something that is emotion. This is something that you can Google. This is something that you can find on your own, doing your own research. But now that it is doing a trickle-down effect and is going past the perceptions of who matters and who doesn't matter, and is starting to affect more and more people, the shift is being focused on the Democrats, and the Democrats are being revealed for the snakes in the grass that they are. But let's continue.
Polling is muscle memory. That when we have a shutdown, it is Republicans' fault. I worked in the 2013 shutdown. It was our fault. We proactively did it. The optics may be different here, maybe the same, but clearly what we see is it's a very different setup for what we're seeing happening in the Capitol right now. It's a very different game.
Well, and the president thinks one of their options should be this. In part, he posts about the filibuster. He says, because of the fact that the Democrats have gone stone cold crazy, the choice is clear: initiate the nuclear option, get rid of the filibuster, and make America great again. So this is that 60-vote threshold that they've not been able to move anything through the Senate. But Senate Majority Leader now, John Thune, his spokesman says Leader Thune's position on the importance of the legislative filibuster is unchanged. And that's something that, listen, if you've been in the minority as Democrat or Republican, you know that's the only tool you may have in your toolbox, and you don't want to get rid of it, even when you're in control.
Certainly, and I think that enough senators quickly came out and poured cold water on this, because once you do away with that, it would drastically change how the Senate works. And you might see huge swings in policy depending on who's in power. This leads more senators to come to the table and be able to negotiate. I actually think that President Trump's tweet on this, or post on this, put Republicans on their back foot rather than doing the blame game. They had to be kind of caught in this weird crosshairs of saying, we don't want to get rid of the filibuster, instead of redirecting, as they've been messaging, their blame against Democrats and saying, time to reopen the government.
Exactly. Trump is not playing the game. So all y'all that are hating on Trump and saying the Republican Party, Trump is saying no. It's this or it's nothing. Like, they don't want to sit there and come to a bipartisan agreement, then we have enough nuts to go ahead and push the damn button. But everybody wants to, you're welcome, Jamila. Everybody wants to, keep up this game of pomp and circumstance. They want to put on airs, but Donald Trump told you he didn't come to play politics the way regular politicians came to play it. He came to drain the swamp, and that includes the Republicans as well. If y'all are meant to be here for the American people, then be here for the American people. This is not about, well, we're worried if we won't be in power. If you're not in power, then it's not your time to shine. And if you can't come to an agreement and the Democrats decide if they're empowered to make a move, then that's the decision they're going to make. But right now, as it stands today, y'all need to make a decision. Either piss or get off the pot. And again, election day is November 11th. So everybody that I see out here talking about all of the issues that they're talking about, if it's immigration, if it's food stamps, if it's you hate the Republicans or whatever, you better be your behind at the polling office, placing your vote during the midterm elections for your congressmen, for your senators, for your local, everybody. Go and vote. Stop crying. Stop pandering on social media. Stop grifting for super chats and cash apps, and actually get out and be a part of the civic process. But let me stop being smart and educated and unemotional on topics and sticking to facts, because apparently what pays in America is to be pandering and catering to one audience or the other. And unfortunately, that's not the reality of what happens. And yes, Nisi, I know that healthcare premiums are definitely high. They are. But if you go on the marketplace right now on today, you're going to see that there was a massive increase. Why? Because the influx of people that actually signed up for healthcare during this open enrollment period doubled, because people are looking for better plans than the ones they have. And unfortunately, the options are not very good. They're just not. I'm going to be honest with you. They're just not. So whose fault is it that you can't get your heart checked in a timely manner? It's actually forcing people to have these insurance programs. It's marketplace insurance, because doctors have the right to not accept your insurance. So imagine being forced, because you essentially are forced in America. You're forced in America to have insurance. You're forced to get a plan that a doctor doesn't have to take. These are the facts of it. And because so many people are funneled into these marketplace insurance programs, doctors are like, oh, no, no, thank you. That one I don't want. And let's also talk about the actual billable cost for healthcare. So, with programs like Medicaid, a procedure can cost $27,000. Medicaid will pay the doctor maybe $1,300. Anything over that is not legally allowed to be billed to the patient. It's not allowed to be billed to the consumer. So if you've ever gotten a medical bill from a doctor's office and you paid insurance, I suggest you consult an attorney. I suggest you call your insurance and double check and ask them, because a lot of the billing is actually messed up due to coding errors and issues. What? Okay, well, that's cool. So when we have, when we have people that are out here just saying a little bit of anything and talking about a little bit of anything, and they don't actually know how the machine works, it's insane. It winds up being like the Wizard of Oz. There's a man behind a green curtain, nobody knows who it is, telling you everything to do, and y'all are just doing whatever. And it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. So if y'all want to keep on keeping on with the nonsense, I mean, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to get to some truth, please make sure that you are subscribed to me here at Mind Chaos Brew, to my husband at Cellulite Podcast, where, you know, we're not caught up in the emotion of things. We actually do our research. We actually look into what is happening, what's not happening, and how we can, as a country, do better. Because this affects us all. This affects those that require public assistance, and this affects those that do not require public assistance. Like, there is the 1% that's fine either way it goes. A lot of them are sitting up on the hill. The rest of us, we are working on average with $55,000 a year. And we cannot afford any changes right now. Lord, now we need to make Democrats be good people again. Listen, I refuse, and I can't with y'all, and I refuse with y'all, okay? But hopefully this gets resolved. Hopefully this gets resolved, and quickly. But this is not the first shutdown. This will not be the last shutdown. But this cannot continue to go on. And if it means making a major change, like taking away the filibuster, then take away the filibuster. That means that our constituents that we send to Washington, D.C. to represent the best public interest will have to work harder. This means that politicians will have to be honest and stand on what they run on. It means that as party lines are clearly being drawn, and that's what the American public is doing, the parties have to start representing for the people what they say they will. Yeah, I've seen Jasmine Crockett, and I'm going to say an opinion that is not popular. I think that Jasmine Crockett's accomplishments in life have been amazing. What she's doing in DC, I do not agree with, because it's cool for, like, you know what I'm saying, a TikTok moment or a viral moment, but all of her constituents, though, they are suffering right now. They are suffering right now. We have laws in this country. We have methodologies to get laws passed, and she knows this because she's written several laws and she's sponsored several laws. It doesn't have to be cattiness and ad hominems. I don't need that in my government. For me, anyway. For my government, I need my politicians to work effectively. I need my politicians to be able to have conversations and operate in civility. I need my politicians to put their emotions to the side and do what it is that I send them to DC to do. No, Dr. Manhattan, their pay is not shut down. Federal employees, yes, but not them. They are still getting paid. They're getting paid right now. With how both parties going at each other like this, the shutdown definitely was a foregone conclusion. Dunk, I agree. So, you know, and it's not even about color. Like, it's crazy to me that it's in 2025 going into 2026 and everything is still boiled down to color. Yeah, but you know what? My mom always told me, just because you can say it doesn't mean you should say it. Honesty is not always a good thing. Shout out to Freak Master. Thank you for subscribing. You know, you don't always have to say every single thing that pops into your mind. And even with being honest, right? There are ways to express a thought. There are ways to express an idea without being offensive and still being honest as well. And I'm not saying that she's, thank you, Dr. Manhattan, and I'm not saying that she's the only one to do it, so don't anybody take it that way. There's a lot of politicians in D.C. that are using ad hominems, that are not operating in civility, and they don't care because they're insulated, you know, in their homes, in their private jets, traveling, getting their money, getting their privatized health care. But it's the American people that are suffering. And as I sit here and I listen to panel discussions and I listen to how people are denigrating human beings predicated upon needs that are based on incomes that we all really don't control, because if we all could be rich, then many more of us would be. It's been bothering me for quite some years now that people are so impressed with a six-figure income. A six-figure income is not what it used to be. Six figures in the 2020s is not what six figures was in the 1990s. And I think a lot of people are really out of touch with reality because it's not their reality. A lot of people talk all that good talk. They talk that talk, but as you listen to them, you can tell what it is that they actually deal with and engage in. Because people that are making that level of money are stressing out every day because of where their tax bracket is set, because of the chunk of money that comes out of their paycheck every week, because of all the things they have to pay because they don't qualify for anything. While y'all are out here talking about marketplace insurance, people that make six figures don't even really qualify for real for marketplace insurance unless they have a large family size. But that's a conversation for another day. Okay. Yeah, Myron is okay. I mean, I'll read it, but I don't generally agree with his politics, but I will check it out. That being said, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Y'all have yourself a good Sunday, and we'll chat again real soon. What does this have to... Tiger. What? Ooh, that's right. Ooh, child. Okay. Anyway, bye, y'all.